This video is going to be a film study preview of the Ravens-Browns matchup in Week 8. Of course, it's Baltimore's second AFC North game of the 2024 season. Going to focus this one on the Browns defense by choice because of so many question marks / instability in the matchup on the other side, meaning the Browns offense with a new play caller, a new quarterback, a new starting quarterback for them, and Jameis Winston. Absent Amari Cooper, although they do return Nick Chubb for the second game in a row, against a Ravens defense that looks like it's got secondary issues from a health standpoint. So I'm going to focus on the Browns defense significantly in this film, but I'm going to talk about a little bit of data, number one. Number two, some things that I expect to see the Ravens do from a pre-snap standpoint. Post-snap, I feel like all bets are off. I could see us returning to a couple of successful concepts that we used in 2023. Let's talk about those two games a little bit. We did score 28 and 31 points against a Browns team that defensively was dominant pretty much for most of 2023. Jim Schwartz's first year as a defensive coordinator. He plays a lot of man-free, wider set of defensive ends from an alignment standpoint in three-point stances, sometimes a little bit of a 3.5 point stance. We did score 28 and 31 points, but if you look at the offensive yards per game, about 300 yards per game, 296 and 306 in the rematch, the loss at home in Baltimore. Additional to that, 237 rushing yards across two games, 120 minutes of football. Compare that or contrast it, if you will, with how we're running the ball in 2024. Incredible efficiency, high-level number of explosive plays from Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Justice Hill in a few cases. Only 17 first downs per game. We're averaging 6.9 yards per play so far. They're not playing a bad brand of defense recently at all. I think they're moving closer to their 2023 brand of defense. You may disagree with that assessment from the standpoint of, yes, they're 1-6 right now. So statistically, their defense certainly doesn't look better. Again, they'll have a new quarterback on the other side from a starting quarterback standpoint. Nick Chubb's second game back, him along with David Njoku. Those guys they've had success against the Ravens in the past. Chubb, I think, only had 11 carries for 22 yards last week. He did have a touchdown. Njoku's got 20 catches for 165 yards this year. Really poor offensive stretch, obviously, on the part of the Browns. This is a defense, in my opinion, that could give the Ravens problems at times because of their personnel, because of how aggressive they are. So Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith, 4 sacks each. JOK's I think is his best season. Very bouncy, energetic, quick inside linebacker who likes to, quote, shoot gaps, if you will, and attack downhill. But he's better this year at taking on blocks and kind of bounces off blocks in some cases. I would say he's drastically improved in block destruction this year. A very tough group of defensive backs: Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson. Now, they lost last week to the Bengals 21-14, but look, Cincinnati got a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown by Charlie Jones to open the game and still only led 7-6 at the half. Why? Because the Browns' defense shut them out in the first half. Absolute control of Cincinnati's offense. We're going to examine some of the things they did in that first half, compare a couple of plays to what the Ravens do. Overall, Cleveland held the Bengals to 259 yards of offense last week, just 59 yards on the ground. Absolute clash of styles here. Their ability to stop the run out of what in essence is a nickel set oftentimes, and how incredibly efficient and explosive we are in the run game. I will also caution you a little bit about their defense and their record, Here's some of their losses. Week 3 against the Giants, 21-15. The next week against the Raiders, 20-16. Against the Eagles, lost 20-16. And then 21-14 last week. You have 4 losses there. Of course, the NFL wants parity. The NFL wants games that are closely decided, competitive throughout, that force fans to watch and advertisers to stay involved through 4 quarters, if you catch what I'm saying. I think there's some things that Ravens can do and should do against this defense to kind of draw out the coverage a little bit. Let's get to the film. Number one, JOK is a guy who I have felt in previous years we've attacked, and other teams as well in the past game, This is the only interception this year, in fact, for Cleveland's defense is by him. Snag, smash concept that Washington ran earlier in the season, before we played them in week 6. So JOK is here. Watch how these two guys match up with the smash part, and then you have the running back run into the flats. By the way, we run this exact play oftentimes from the same exact alignment. So the smash element, the corner, running back out into the flats. Jaden Daniels is trying to shoot this ball in here on the little snag concept, mini curl, whatever you want to call it. And JOK, I think, knew what was coming. I think he stayed just outside the window such that he could jump it. We went at him last year in the pass game. It'll be interesting to see if his pass coverage is improved dramatically in zone and in man. They're going to play a lot of man into the boundary. So let's get to the film last week against the Bengals. Second possession here. Huge run by Chase Brown. Now, this comes back for a penalty. But this is what we would like to get accomplished if we can. We would like to get in the eye and run downhill at them. I would say this, that if we have Pat Ricard on the field and another tight end, 21 personnel, or obviously 22 personnel, they better not be in these wide alignments like you see. Because if so, then we are going to run the football right at them, and we're going to be successful at it if we can get up to them at the second level. So watch how the combo occurs here with the center and the guard. The guard is going to be able to close off JOK right here, number one, and number two, the fullback / tight end is going to ISO lead on the boundary side safety who's walked up. Chase Brown's got a nice seam between those guys. Burst through, really nothing those guys can do at all at the point of attack. They're dealing with blockers that outweigh them significantly. Brown cuts it back, huge gain, but like I said, comes back for a penalty. Is it something the Ravens can replicate? Well, number one, it occurs into the boundary, the short side of the field, out of the eye. That's where we run the football a lot when we get into the eye. Number two, from a standpoint of who's there, it's basically a 4-on-4. So these two running backs and the left guard and left tackle against these four boundary side defenders here. We're omitting these guys from the point of attack. And when you get the end zone angle, I'll try to explain it one more time. So you get a cutoff because of the combo by the center. So the center becomes the fifth guy. And so you, as a defense, you need a fifth guy. It's the backside inside linebacker. He doesn't get there in this case. He's got an offensive line who cuts him off. It's over. Is it this easy to get accomplished? Well, no. I mean, they're going to put up significant resistance, but we have the best running back in the league. We have the best running game in the league because of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. I expect to see us get in the eye, run action to the boundary early, and go play action. Now, whether we're trying to go up top, whether we're trying to go to Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kolar, or whatever, I think we're going to try to put them on their heels, and the I formation is a way to do it. It's simple from a Ravens standpoint. We're either handing it off to Derrick Henry or Lamar is going play action. There really isn't much else that we do out of it. I think we had one screen out of I formation play action, but you get the idea. We're not going to bully them, but I think we can use the I to draw out aggressive downhill reactions from them at the inside linebacker, strong safety position, or boundary side safety position, and then use play action to kind of get at them. Derrick Henry's brilliant in the eye. Pat Ricard does a great job. Pat Ricard's always going to go front side. Henry doesn't care. Henry's just going to read it. It reminds me a little bit of, you guys ever see Pete Carroll talking to Marshawn Lynch on the sideline? I think of a playoff game, and Pete Carroll's trying to explain it to him. Hey, the next time we get that look, we're going to call this particular run play. I think it was like trap, but I could be wrong. Maybe it wasn't trap. And he's explaining it to Marshawn Lynch for like 30 seconds. And that's how it works on the sideline. You're trying to prep players for a situation in game. You don't have much time to talk. And Marshawn Lynch says, I'll just read it. And Pete Carroll tries to explain it again because he wants the player to go in the area of the field that he knows is going to be exploitable, is going to be open. And Marshawn Lynch says, Coach, I'll just read it. And he reads it, and I think he scores on the next time they run it. Derrick Henry's that guy. He's that guy. He just will read it. I love this formation, and I think this is one of the things we will do against them. So 21 personnel. So 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 receivers. Why? Because they play so much man. So if you want your corner matched up against Charlie Kolar, and then over here However you get this accomplished, theoretically, if they're in their nickel defense, then the nickel defender would be down here, the corner. If they give us this look, and in fact, I think against the Bucks, if we got this look from Twins Eye, we should be throwing the ball. We should be attacking that side of the field. Denzel Ward has 12 passes defensed. So if he's a right-left corner, you would think that he would be, outside to his left or outside to their left or outside to their right. The point is, give them a look that could elicit or bait out a cowboy call. Cowboy means basically put both corners on the same side of the field. This one's sped up, obviously. Derrick Henry's 81-yard run against the Bucks. Zion McCollum comes across the field. Number one, because we can run the ball into the boundary. We still get the same opportunity that I just described, except now we've added a tight end, so it can actually be 5-on-4. Those 4 boundary side defenders there. This is the 5th defender that, quote, has to get there if you want to stop the play. If a 5th guy for the offense can get to the boundary. Basically, I constantly talk about boundary side runs, and in this case, Patrick McCarry cuts off that backside inside linebacker, can't play a role. It is literally that simple on boundary side or weak side runs. If you're able to get cutoff blocks for the backside inside linebacker, and you have a great running back like a Derrick Henry or a Marshawn Lynch, a guy who can, quote, read it, they will. End zone angle, same play. So if you're not sure what I'm saying, this is the backside inside linebacker. If you do the If you do the line here, 4 players for the Ravens, a 5th who can get to the point of attack. He's going to be the ball carrier against these 4 defenders. If we can cut him off, it's literally that simple. If you can cut off the backside inside linebacker, you've got an opportunity to make a big run. You're going to leave someone unblocked. In this case, it's a strong safety, Antoine Winfield. 0 on effort or technique there, trying to get to Henry. It's going to be difficult to block him anyway, but really poor effort and angle, if you ask me. 81 yards. Unfortunately, he doesn't punch it in on the next couple of run plays. So moving back to the Bengals game last week. This is a 2nd and 13, that same drive. And Burrow has to get rid of it. You got a mug look, which they're going to show often. And out of that mug look, and you're kind of getting an idea of what I'm talking about. Moving a couple of receivers to one side, see how they respond. We use these mug looks a lot. And I think what the Browns have done in this game against the Bengals multiple times is use the mug look to elicit a sniffer reaction by the running back. Basically, Burrow pushed the running back up to the line of scrimmage to help out with the pass pro because of the threat of the blitz. What effect does that have overall? It removes the running back as a potential receiver and strengthens your ability to just play man to the backside. I'll go back to the L22 in a moment. So off screen here to our right, you guys got a frame in the way, my apologies. Off screen here, we're going to end up with just one receiver. That running back can't run a shoot route, a swing route, whatever, out into the flats because he's involved in the pass pro. So the Browns might try to do this against us. What will our reaction be? Screens. And I think screens early is an option against. Now, they're very fast. It doesn't mean, hey, screens are just going to work. We did screen them twice last year quite effectively, if you ask me. I want to re-explain or make sure that I'm clear about what I'm saying. The Browns, because of their look here, knew that Burrow would check that running back up to the line of scrimmage. And so what that does is allows you to be manned here on the backside with a safety over the top and no corresponding shoot route out into the flats by a running back, maybe a zig route, choice route, whatever you want to call it. That running back has been removed from the equation as a potential receiver. In terms of the matchup between the Browns and the Bengals, I think that's what they were doing, especially in the first half. How that dynamic plays out against us could be drastically different. It's a 4th and 2, still on the second possession, 2 plays later. And multiple teams do this against the Browns. They get the running back out of here, see if JOK goes with him to the boundary or to the field. Point number 1 for me, we should use motion early. I would like to see us get to the line of scrimmage 3 to 5 seconds earlier than we have been. I know that systemically that may be difficult to do because of the way we run things, switching personnel groups, and so on and so forth. But I'd like to see us get the running back in motion, show your coverage. In fact, this is man. The ball's on the left hash for the offense. JOK's playing man into the boundary on the running back, and they're playing man on the backside X. I'll go back to the all-22 here in a moment. So maybe you don't learn much, and that's one of the reasons why teams do that. Play that combo hybrid man to the boundary down here, man, and then some type of zone or match to the top side. We're talking about here and here, which is why I'd like to see the motion go to the field. See how they react. Does the field side inside linebacker move with the running back, or does the field side linebacker sit down, not move at all, kind of being a giveaway there, if you will, that it's zone. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Now, this is a ball that Jalen Hurts isn't able to handle on the snap. It's high, goes over his head, so it's a unusual, unsettled situation. He throws it out of bounds, fortunately for the Eagles. But the way that they're getting this done, motioning Saquon Barkley out of there, seeing what the field side inside linebacker does. Does he give away anything pre-snap to Lamar? I'd like to also see us go motion early and run. So motion with the tailback or whoever, and then run the ball. So make it look like we're trying to motion to draw out the coverage and then run the football. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. And there's going to be times where you're going to motion and they're going to show man and play zone. Then there's going to be times where, especially if late in the play clock, I almost said shot clock, late in the play clock, if you motion, they might have the linebacker move with him and then morph into some other look post-snap. If you catch them in that and burn them, they don't seem to do that a second time. So moving forward a little bit, some other concepts. I'm always going to bring this one up because I think it's a brilliant scheme. Jet dive. You guys have probably heard me talk about it too much at this point. Happens to be Jamar Chase. We generally use Zay Flowers. Jet, the dive opposite of it. I love it because A, it's productive for us. B, it utilizes someone other than Lamar Jackson to, quote, make a play. And also doesn't require Derrick Henry to do anything. Those guys can kind of take the play off, if you will, if it's a known handoff on the jet. But along with that, we can control where we run it, number one. Number two, because the Browns play so much man, this happened a lot in 2023. Teams ran jet against them because they didn't have to block this guy. Number one. Number two, they knew that on the front side, they could get guys out on the edge because the Browns, are only matching numbers in order to play man. So these two guys could just, from a simplistic standpoint, be blocked by the players they're supposed to guard. On a jet sweep concept, you don't have to block the front side defensive end. If he's going to make that play, he's probably just too damn good, number one. Number two, you probably need to be running some other complementary concept off of it. Speaking of complementary concepts, the jet dive, guess what? Hit them big last year. So the jet action and then the running back kind of winding it back against a wall of blockers. Those guys aren't actually blocking for the running back. They're blocking for the jet. So referring to a wall there doesn't necessarily fit from the standpoint of what you're seeing on screen for this play. The point still stands. Jet and jet dive has been productive against this Browns defense under Jim Schwartz. And then I'd like to see the play action as the third element to it. Lamar not handing it off on the jet, not handing it off on the running back, getting back there, kicking, and actually getting ready to throw the football, I think could be a productive element for this Ravens team on Sunday. We've certainly used it enough generally to the field, and we're oftentimes going 21 or 22 personnel to get Ricard out there with Kolar in front as a lead blocker. This is a brilliant run by Zay Flowers early in the game against the Bucks, changing direction, shifting, I think a 19-yard gain. Actually hurt his ankle on the play that he still dealt with this week. I believe he was out of practice 2 days before practicing on Friday. So still third possession. This is actually after the very next play after the jet sweep to Chase. And I think this is an example of a team, in this case the Bengals, motioning across to see what the reaction is by the Browns. There's none. So there's no one moving over with Higgins. There's no Denzel Ward, Newsome, whoever, motioning across to match up with him. And post-snap, you do get a blitz by the Browns, and they're dropping two LOBs out. Essentially, it ends up being a drop, 3 deep, 3 under, which is a cool, a 3 deep, 2 under, which is a cool coverage with 2 droppers. It's somewhat similar to our glitch blitz, if you will. conceptually it's not the same in because of where the two blitzers, 43 and 6, are coming from. They're not blitzing off the edge. Burrow doesn't seem to have as much on the ball to me. There's not as much zip, in my opinion, on the football. 3rd and 2 situations where they're going to play a lot of man. Look, they really use a lot of man free. And when they do play zone, the defenders are normally focused heavily on the quarterback. So there's opportunities, in my opinion, to either move them a little bit or pump fake. And I think that's going to be a key for Lamar Jackson in this offense. Is these teams that major in man don't have enough team to major in zone. So they're going to take shortcuts and stare at the quarterback. Overly so. We do the same thing, in fact. But getting back to the man stuff, they're going to compete. I mean, Emerson's going to compete. Denzel Ward, I think, has 12 passes defensed. Doesn't have an interception, but playing at a really, really high level, in my opinion. I'm talking about Denzel Ward. Emerson, really underrated as well. I think he had an interception last year against the Ravens. A lot of man-to-man defense, and they're pretty much going to show it to you when they do. In this case, Higgins started out on the right-hand side in trips. They're trying to see how the Browns are matching up. Move him across. So you wouldn't think that you had man because it didn't show man early. And you certainly got a guy matching the vertical here. Man here, man here. Denzel Ward sometimes looks like he's in man, but he's just so talented and smart that he's able to keep his eyes on the quarterback even while he's playing man at times, particularly if it's press bail. A lot of people can do that, don't get me wrong. This is a target of Higgins up to the top side. I think it's Newsome, who plays really everywhere. He's very physical. He's got a great contact balance, Newsome. He does a nice job, if you ask me, of making contact with the receivers kind of late. Maybe he's seeing something. Maybe he knows when to do so. But he reminds me of an NBA defender who's just very disruptive towards your point guards, your guys that are going to handle the ball and try to initiate your offense. Were he not a Brown playing against the Ravens 2 times a year, I'd be a big fan of his. I think he's a spectacular football player. He's forced those Bengals receivers to compete, and in this case, drew an incompletion against Higgins. So 3rd and 9, where they're pretty much showing you what coverage they're going to play. Tailback motioning out of there. JOK doesn't want to switch sides too much. I think he's trying not to give it away. He ends up folding over the top, and the running back is really open over the middle. Nice job competing by Ward here. I think 2 consecutive plays in a row. He's just a guy who's got great timing when the ball is thrown down the field because of their ability to cover. I think our matchups with the tight ends are going to be something for Lamar to look to in this game. So if it's JOK against our tight ends, I like our chances. He's oftentimes matched up with running backs. The nickel defender deals with tight ends. We've got to handle Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. They got 4 sacks each. That's going to be a challenge. It's a huge week for Roger Rosengarten, if you ask me. We were able to get points on the board last year against them. In the first game, 28 points. Big play to Zay Flowers, I think late in the second quarter, number 1. Number 2, also had a short field touchdown to Mark Andrews late in the game and a short field touchdown in the first half. So their offense was really poor. Is it possible that the Browns' offense struggles on Sunday? Sure it is. But it's our defense that they're playing against. And at this point, my level of pre-game faith in our defense is quite low. And I expect us to improve. I do. But right now, it would not surprise me if the Browns are able to come out there and score enough points to stay in the game because their defense is so good. And I think playing at a really high level once again. 5th possession here. And when you do get zone, I think there's places to find, space to find by your receivers down the field. Again, everything is very heavily focused on the quarterback. And it's not that it's not taught across multiple levels of football, youth, high school, college, and the NFL. Having said that, they do not react to routes at the second level very often out of zone because, again, I don't think they major in it. And so the teaching and the amount of time spent on it is such that you're not getting linebackers generally reacting by turning and opening their head to look for a route that's breaking inward and then settle and look at the quarterback. You're getting guys that stare at the quarterback the entire time, irrespective of routes that are developing in front of them or to their outside. We never gave our inside linebackers a cop-out or an excuse by saying the route that's behind you. We constantly referred to it as a route to the outside. From a realistic standpoint, of course this route is behind JOK, and he's not, quote, to blame for it anyway. But the point is not building in language that provides people an out or an easy excuse. Coach, there's nothing I can do about that because it's behind me. If you have awareness of routes that are to your outside, you have awareness of routes that are behind you because you've opened and looked briefly to see the route and what's developing. If you've got a wheel and someone's gone, then you know, by the number 2 receiver, then you understand that number 1's probably running an in. They're not generally going to run a wheel with 2 and number 1 a vertical up the sideline. They're going to be running into the same space. Hopefully I explained that in a way that makes sense. I'm not saying they're terrible in zone. It's just that these guys stare at the quarterback pretty much the whole damn time and don't respond to the routes at all. Still 5th possession here. They're going to drop out to zone after forcing the running back to step up in pass pro. I think that's part of the plan there. Will they have things like that for us? I don't think our response, Todd Monken doesn't do that. That's a Cincinnati Bengals thing. Their offensive staff. This isn't, our answer is going to be something else. Our answer is going to be screens. Our answer might be run the ball. Look, I get to watch a lot of Detroit Lions film, and those guys, Ben Johnson, if you give them these looks, they will just take everybody down, meaning everyone block down, and then try to run off of that wall with the running back. And it's true. Look, they got Jahmyr Gibbs, so he's a different level in terms of burst and athleticism. Our answers are not going to be the same as the Bengals, so the matchup will be, slightly different. In this case, they're able to get a sack after showing the mug, blitz, overload, whatever, getting the running back to step up, and then dropping out to zone. Instances of man coverage here, heavy on man, and particularly Denzel Ward is one of them. I think he's playing at a really high level. The flag was actually picked up there, if I remember correctly. So, can the Ravens throw the ball consistently on this team? Well, we got to be able to pass pro, number 1. Number 2, we're going to face man-to-man. So, Tom Monken's got to have his man beaters loaded up. He's got to have his man beaters ready to go. We did get almost 60 points in the 2 games played against them last year. Again, a lot of that in the first matchup was due to their offense being so poor and poorly run, number 1, and number 2, not having an NFL-ready quarterback at that time under center. And this week they will in Jameis Winston. Nick Chubb being back is a guy who's always played well against the Ravens. And David Njoku, even though they've gotten rid of Amari Cooper, is a guy that's done significant damage against us to the boundary. Am I saying that the Browns should be favored? No. Am I saying hold off on your bets? Well, I don't bet, number 1. I don't normally talk about it, number 2. I do think we can get things done against this defense because our offense is operating at such a high level of efficiency. The thing I will say is the Browns do get a lot of stops. It's possible that we still score 4 or 5 times in a game, but we get stopped outright on 4 or 5 possessions as well. This Browns defense seems to have the ability in the last year plus to get more stops over the course of a game such that your points scored are obviously minimized. You're not getting the ball into the scoring zone to get field goals if you don't get into the end zone. The Ravens have been able to get something going on a high percentage of our possessions this year. And in fact, in some cases, we're scoring on 3, 4, 5 consecutive possessions. I don't know that that'll happen against this Browns defense. If they're healthy, if they're playing really well, we've got some pass pro issues that I think are quite obvious if we're put in those situations. And teams in our division, the Bengals did it in our win up in Cincinnati earlier this year. They stopped the run for large stretches, and then Derrick Henry punched one through and nearly scored in overtime. And Geno Stone's able to make the tackle, and we game-win field goal by Justin Tucker. The point is, it may be a similar dynamic this week whereby the Browns are able to hold us down, and then Henry starts busting runs in the second half. That's been the dynamic to a certain extent, is that we understand how to attack teams a little more with the run game in the second half, and Derrick Henry starts to make people miss, number one, or number two, set up blocks, and a crease becomes a huge opportunity for a 60, 70, 80-yard run. I think it's going to be a very physical football game. I'm a little worried about our defense because of the secondary having trouble already. Maybe if guys are going in a little more banged up, maybe we're going to play more zone. There's a part of me that wonders if we shouldn't be more of a zone team. I don't think our zone reactions are very good, though, because we haven't majored in it, and it doesn't seem to have been instructed to the level that last year's defense was in terms of how we play our Tampa 2, our cover 3, etc. In any case, this is my first preview for the Ravens game against the Browns on Sunday. I'll have something out on Jameis Winston Sunday morning, early for Ravens fans to consume. Interesting player, obviously, at one point threw 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in the same season. Todd Monken was his offensive coordinator that year, if I recall correctly. So we have some knowledge of him dating back years on the coaching staff. Interesting dynamic there with the possibility of Monken helping out the defensive staff. Maybe things that Jameis Winston used to struggle with. Maybe things that we would want to do to him. Throws we'd want to force him to make. It's entirely possible that he comes out there and throws for 270 or 300, but throws us a couple of picks as well. And we're able to get some separation against this Browns team. They don't want that. I don't think they want separation where they have to throw the ball a ton, even though teams have been successful getting passing yards in chunks against us, in fact, in 2024. In any case, I enjoyed putting this preview together for you guys. Kind of basic focus on what the Browns want to do defensively. Play man, get after the quarterback. In order to do so, they've got to stop or slow down the run first. They did it last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Can they do that against Derrick Henry and the Ravens this Sunday? Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section. If you think other Ravens fans would appreciate my commentary and some of the plays that I showed and tried to break down for your benefit, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media so other Ravens fans can enjoy it as well.